Hello, greetings. Welcome to the Historical Boxing Society podcast. Today we are going to do a series that I've been working on for a while called The Illustrated History of the Australian Fighters. And I'm going to do about a 4 or 5 minute bio on each fighter as we kind of go through the beginning of the history of the fighters. And the great thing that I really wanted to do with this is we're going to try and provide photos for a lot of these fighters that have no photo whatsoever, as I can take newspaper photos or drawings or depictions and colorize them and bring them to life and really show you what each of these Australian fighters looked like, which is a great treat because there's no information on YouTube about them, and most people aren't even aware what half of these fighters even appear as, So we're going to give a little bit of a slice of history to one of the great eras of boxing. There's no other point in boxing that had a bigger explosion than these Australian wave of fighters as they launched fighters in all weight classes. There was champions in several weight classes, and we're going to take a look and give you a little bio on each of these fighters, and I'm going to give you kind of grades on how good or how effective they were. So before we get started, I want to give you a quick little history of the Australian heavyweight belt. Now, they describe this as the heavyweight belt. From all I can read, there's no middleweight champion lineage, although many points in the newspapers, they describe middleweight champions. I think it's more for prestige than anything else, as they describe one of the first fighters we're going to do here is a middleweight champion, and Peter Newton. There's no lineage of a middleweight Australian champion. There's just the one champion, the heavyweight title holder, even though it has no weight limits. Just either you're good enough to win it or you're not. So we're going to give you a quick history here. As Wikipedia is definitely wrong in crediting William Miller as the first Australian champion, because obviously he would have had to win it from somebody, and they don't have the fortune of looking at the Cyber Boxing Zone, but you can look through the archives of the Cyber Boxing Zone and see rather quickly that Wikipedia is inaccurate. So try and give you some clarification of how things got established here quickly. So Larry Foley debuted in October 1866, which is pretty darn early, before most of these other people's. That's almost way back in the Jim Mace in its prime days. He does a 71-round draw with Sandy Ross, and there's no winner. It's a draw, so there's no title established. As I stated, these were gang bosses trying to fight each other for territory, a Push and a Rocks gang, and it takes a while for them to get a rematch again. So April of 1871, this is credited as the first Australian title match, and Larry Foley gets revenge over one Sandy Ross with a 4-round KO. So that's April 71. He goes through the entire decade of the 1870s as the Australian champ, and he starts getting notoriety. That's why Jim Mace eventually comes over in March of 1877 to meet one Larry Foley, and that's how we get launched with the boxing school and history and the Queensberry rules, and everything that happens is because of Jim Mace coming over. So the Larry Foley was the first champion. That's April of 1871. Now, the first Queensberry gloved match is 1878 against Larry Foley and one Peter Newton. Jim Mace talks Foley into coming down to Melbourne because he's in Sydney. He comes down to Melbourne. They make a bunch of money off the first fight, and Peter Newton gives him the battle of his life. Foley doesn't even win this match. This ends in a draw, but he's still champion. So this is Larry Foley as the first gloved champion. This is a solid 14 years before the first American Queensberry match of Sullivan versus Corbett, for the championship. This is full 14 years before that point. So this is the first Queensberry championship ever fought. This is 1878. The following year, March 1879, Foley fights the last bare knuckle championship in Australia. This is Foley versus Hicken. Foley gets a spectacular match. This is the famous watercolor painting with Jem Mason, Larry Foley's corner. All of these guys were interconnected, so even though Foley fought Newton was a pupil of Jem Mace, so they were all semi-friends. So that was the last bare knuckle champion match that ever takes place. So at that point, Foley gets enough money to open the White Horse Saloon, kind of starts the boxing academy, starts doing business activities, and pays less and less attention to earning his living by getting, the crap beaten out of him in these long, prolonged matches. So Foley is still the first glove champion because he had fought Newton in 1878. So finally, after 5 years there, 3 years after the Hicken match, he finally fights William Miller. Miller is just a professor. He's a wrestler, and he's also a teacher, and he really had no significant impact on the beginning of boxing, but he just outmuscles Larry Foley, gets himself the victory, and even at that, it was kind of controversial because they stopped the fight before Foley went down. So initially it was declared a draw, and then kind of later, posthumously, they awarded Miller the match because it was kind of one of those matches where the crowd broke in and stopped it before the end result happened. So it was a little bit of a asterisk with William Miller's victory. That's important here because Bill Farnan wants the Australian Championship, and he is calling out Larry Foley as the champion instead of William Miller, which is credited as the first Australian champion. And he's going around running his mouth saying Larry Foley won't fight him. And at that point, he gets enough cred that they're actually publishing photos or articles in the United States of Bill Farnan being champion, even though Farnan beat nobody, but it's actually started to get enough press that it's speculated that John L. Sullivan is willing to come over to Australia and fight Bill Farnan because, of course, Bill Farnan is white. That never materializes, but it earned him enough press to establish himself as a name. So Foley's getting tired of this, so he wants to establish a real lineage Australian title match. So he puts his star pupil Peter Jackson against Bill Farnan. This is one of the first official Australian title matches for the belt. That happens in July 1884, the following year after William Miller and Larry Foley. This is the match where Bill Farnan beats Peter Jackson because Jackson was allegedly poisoned. Maybe perhaps with morphine. They don't quite know what the substance was that poisoned him. But Peter Jackson has a very bad reaction, kind of muscle spasms, kind of can't even really quite throw his punches even accurately. So Bill Farnan sneaks his way into the title there with his victory over Peter Jackson in July 1884. So he's only champion for a good solid 7-8 months, and the following year they finally get Farnan to fight Tom Lees, which is Peter Jackson pupil, and Tom Lees has no trouble dissecting the lumbering, slugging, scrapper tactics of a Bill Farnan, and just absolutely gives him a severe beating. So that's the end of Bill Farnan's 8-month title run. He didn't get very long out of it, and at that point, everything's united, and they consider Tom Lees as the undisputed Australian champion. So Tom Lees is really the first clear, undisputed Australian heavyweight champion. And that is a history of the beginning of the Australian belt and how it was established. And we're going to do the first profile here on one of the boxers that I just mentioned, because I feel like we can start with him. He was pretty early into the career of the Australian fighters, and that is one Peter Newton. And we're going to do a profile on him and show you some colored pictures of one Peter Newton. And Newton, it was suspected, was the guy that poisoned Peter Jackson. So that's one of his big claims to fame, is Jackson, it's alleged, chased Peter Newton out of his boxing camp for whatever reason. They don't quite state in the newspaper what it was, but it's suspected that Jackson got wind that Peter Newton was the one who spiked his water, and that's one of Peter Newton's claims to fame, is he was a little bit of a troublemaker. So we're going to do a quick little bio on one Peter Newton right here. So we're going to start here with the photo of these beginning Australian fighters. This is from the book Heroes of the Fancy. And, of course, the fancy was the boxing community as a whole, the businessmen that were running it, and the heroes were the fighters that were involved with fighting for the fancy. And the oldest fighter that we have on there was born in 1851. That's Bill Farnan. Peter Newton was born in 1854, just 3 years later. But incredibly, their debut days are strangely way apart from each other, as the boxing rec is got some very incomplete information on it. They credit Peter Newton's first bout in, I think, is 1881, which is way off. That's way off. Not accurate at all. So Peter Newton debuted in 1872, which is very early. So he established himself quite early into the ring. Bill Farnan debuts in 1879, which is a good solid 7 years after Newton. Peter Newton, as I stated, was born after Bill Farnan, so you can judge by the math there that Peter Newton's extremely young on his debut, as he is. He's 18 years old when he debuts. And Newton has several matches here. December 2nd, 1878 was his 47-round draw with Larry Foley. It was an incredible match. Foley, 27 years old, and Peter Newton, just a young age of 23 years old, even though Peter Newton looks very aged and old in a lot of his photos here. He debuted as a very, very young man, so he wasn't an old guy at all. In the 14th round of the Foley-Newton match, I have notes that Peter Newton went down, and he took a little bit of a beating. In the 37th round, Foley's right optic begins to close as Newton targets this. And in the 45th round, they stop as sufficient punishment had been administered on both sides. So that's how they declare that bout a draw in round 47. As I stated, April of 79, the belt goes to Foley again with that is still with him, is he beats Abe Hicken, and then Newton finally gets himself a match with Abe Hicken. This is age 27. Is he getting a little bit older there? July 1881, Abe Hicken, 15-round draw, and Hicken is getting the best of that match. So this is what they credit as Newton's first match, which that's a good solid 9 years after his debut. And Newton does many exhibitions with Tom Lees. As I stated, they're all kind of intertwined with each other, as Newton was a pupil of Foley, and Foley, or pupil of Mace, and Mace and Foley were best friends. So that's why Newton does a lot of these exhibitions with one Tom Lees, and the newspapers described Newton as a middleweight champion. And he also does exhibitions with Larry Foley. So as far as power goes, Newton didn't have much power. His skill level, I would say, would be pretty high, because he's able to hang with Larry Foley, and he boxed at a pretty young age. So I would give his skill level at about maybe a 7 out of 10. Power-wise, not so much, maybe 2 out of 10. So overall, Peter Newton's grade would be about a Class D fighter. I don't even think he was to a Class C, but he still holds a place in the significance of the Australian fighters. As I stated, Newton was a kind of a known troublemaker. He was one of the suspected as one of the persons who poisoned Jackson. And April of 1879, he was charged with robbery. This kind of takes a little bit of his steam out of his career, because he's trying to have to do some actual jail time for this robbery, because he's a kind of a sketchy character in the beginning of these Australian fighters. And when he comes out, he gets the bout with Hicken in 1881, and kind of a bit rusty at this point, because he had been in jail. So Hicken gets the best of this bout. Hicken is not anybody that we're going to cover. Much like William Miller, they're just not too significant of fighters. The very next fighter we're going to do is the beginning birth date, the very earliest guy, and that is another guy in the famous photo, Bill Farnan. We're going to do a quick preview on Bill Farnan's profile. So Bill Farnan, this is his profile. Bill Farnan, 5'9", 170 pounds. We're going to do a quick little rundown of specs. Brute force power, we're giving him a 3, so he's slightly more powerful than Peter Newton. Skill level, significantly less than Peter Newton. Skill level 2. And durability, I'll give him a 4. So that translates as a Class D fighter, same as Peter Newton. A lot of these fighters here are going to be Class D fighters. So this is how Bill Farnan got started. He got started at the age of 27. He debuted in 1879. Bill Farnan actually was one of the very first people to answer an ad from the Boxing Academy of Larry Foley, and he debuted in 1879. That's right around when the White Horse was getting started. He was one of the first people, as I stated, to answer an ad, and that's how he got his debut a little bit before some of these other Australian fighters. He's described as the South Melbourne blacksmith. Bill Farnan started his career at Jim Mace's athletic hall across from the White Horse Foley School. Eventually, they would combine Foley's and Jim Mace's school for a short period before Jim Mace went to Melbourne. And Bill Farnan kicked off his initiation in the summer of 1879, one of the earliest dates. Bill Farnan beat Peter Newton with a 4-round KO in 1882, and he got a reputation. In 1884, he wrote 2 letters declaring that he was champion because Larry Foley declined a challenge. as it stated, Farnan already had beaten Peter Jackson in 1882, but the titles were kind of in limbo, as I stated. So even though Wikipedia is declaring him as champion, he wasn't quite so clear-cut in Australia. So he's declaring himself champion, and then in 1884, the Police Gazette publishes Farnan, champion pugilist of Australia, and he was accepted by the United States as champion. Foley disputed this and arranged for Jackson to meet Bill Farnan in his ring again and put him in his place. Larry Foley put Peter Jackson in his place for the title, and of course Jackson took round 1, and after that in round 2 Jackson lost control of his bodies and flung his arms around as he was experiencing heavy nausea. Afterwards, Peter's stomach was painful for some time as something was spiked in his water, and he chased Peter Newton from his camp as he was suspected to have spiked his water. So 1884 was the Peter Jackson fight. 1885 and 86, Tom Lees is fighting Bill Farnan. And 1886 was his last fight, a 19-round draw with Tom Lees. So Farnan had a very short career in the Australian heavyweight scene. And we're going to give you some quick notes here on Bill Farnan versus Peter Jackson 2. This happens in September of 1884. We're going to give you a quick rundown of the fight. The very first round was decidedly in Peter Jackson's favor. Round 2, they traded blows. Farnan got in some body blows that were heavy on Peter Jackson. Round 3, Farnan landed big body blows. Jackson hit him near his left ear and 3 quick ones to the body, and Farnan was groggy at the round's end. Round 4, heavy exchanges. Jackson punished severely in the ribs. The round ends with somewhat stronger Bill Farnan as the two are exchanging heavy blows with each other. Round 5, neither was able to do much more than rushes as both men were beginning to tire. Round 6, Jackson lands heavily on Bill Farnan's necks and ribs and has Bill Farnan in a full retreat. Jackson's blows had not cost their power. Bill Farnan, now, who was much stronger, fought his opponent with both hands on the rib, finishing the round very much in Bill Farnan's favor. That was round 6. The following round, police intervene with fans rushing the ring, a very disorderly scene as the police interfere. The men were cautioned by the police not to go on or arrest would be made. As I stated, this was the beginning of the Queens of Marksbury rules, and the police were very indignant in the beginning stages of this. So they stopped the bout. As you can hear by the notes there, Jackson very much had some of the best of Bill Farnan. So that really was not so much a clear Bill Farnan victory as they rushed in. But Farnan was having success on Peter Jackson's rib area, which was causing him some significant pain and such. So that, I guess, officially ends in a draw. So that was kind of the last highlight of Bill Farnan's career, as he really he puts up somewhat of a battle against Tom Lees, but he's completely outclassed by Peter Jackson's pupil in Tom Lees. And the following year, Tom Lees takes over the title in 1885. The next fighter that we are doing here in the countdown is Billy Mccarthy. Billy Mccarthy is actually the first member here of the Iron Pot Academy. The Iron Pot Academy was pupils of Larry Foley's school. They were known collectively as the Iron Pot Academy, and this is one of their greatest members in Billy Mccarthy. So Billy Mccarthy, born August 8th, 1854, the very same year as one Peter Newton. Billy Mccarthy was a middleweight, 5 foot 6 1/2, 160 pounds. The specs for Billy McCarthy: brute force, I'll give him a 5 out of 10. Skill level, 7 out of 10. He was pretty exceptional, pretty top shelf class C fighter. And durability, 9 out of 10. He was extremely durable, almost perfect. So that translates into a Class C fighter. I have Billy Mccarthy probably ranked right around nonpareil Jack Dempsey, towards the top of the Class C fighters. I do believe McCarthy would be able to give the lower half of the Class B fighters, Old Chocolate George Godfrey, very good fight. I think he had the ability to be able to upset Godfrey. That's a possibility of happening. So, as I stated, Billy McCarthy was a student of Peter Jackson. Peter Jackson described him as the most ardent student that I ever saw, was how he was described. He was a natural boxer and very good. He faced some of the greatest skill competition of all time. He fights Aussie Billy Smith. He fights the Jawbreaker Jim Fogerty. He fights some great Australian fighters and Frank Slavin's brother. He fights Joe Goddard. He fights Bob Fitzsimmons. He fights Mick Dooley. He fights Jim. So he's just right down the barrel of all the Australian fighters. In addition to that, he also fights non-pareil Jack Dempsey twice. He faces him. And he faces some of the other great United States fighters from the USA, as we will go through his career here. And, of course, he fights none other than his master teacher in Peter Jackson. McCarthy fights him, too. So his resume is just completely stacked with Hall of Fame fighters. So we're going to go through his career here. And for Billy McCarthy, I am just actually going to do a boxing profile like I do with several of the fighters, as he certainly deserves his own profile. We're just kind of going through his career with the important fights. Okay, so his debuted in 1886 against another pupil of Peter Jackson's. As I stated, most of these pupils would face each other to begin with, as they were constantly sparring against each other. So 1886, he makes his debut against Aussie Billy Smith. This was a private match, 3-round draw, both pupils of Peter Jackson. 1886, he also fights another Peter Jackson pupil, Tom Meadows, to a 4-round draw. June 86, he has a finish fight with Jawbreaker Jim Fogerty, a much bigger fighter. Both fighters choose to discontinue in round 19 after heavy punishment had been administered to both fighters. So they mutually quit. July 1886, the huge match with Aussie Billy Smith. This is for the actual first, as I can see, Australian middleweight crown. These two are matched together, and Peter Jackson thought that Smith would win the match, as they were both pupils of his, and Peter Jackson felt that Aussie Billy Smith was the more talented of the two fighters. As it turns out, Peter Jackson was incorrect. The 12th round, Mccarthy KOs Aussie Billy Smith and wins the middleweight championship of Australia. As you can see on Wikipedia, they have the Australian middleweight champion, and that's missing a bunch of information there. This is the very beginning of the Australian middleweight championship. August 86, the master fights the pupil, a 4-round draw with Peter Jackson. Jackson usually gets the best of all these matches since he knows his pupils very well, and Jackson had the better of that match. April 1887, the following year. This is for a championship, 35-round draw with one of the most clever heavyweights to ever visit Australia, Martin Buffalo Costello. This was declared a draw after 35 rounds due to time, as they could not fight past the following hour, so they were forced to turn this into a draw. June 1887, the first to get a win over jawbreaker Jim Fogerty, a 6-round win. He lost to Fogerty the very next month, as they were fighting frequently. December 1887, championship against Ironbark Jim Burge. And this was significant, as it was Mccarthy was the first man to knock out Jim Burge, as he knocked him out. December 1887, this is incorrectly listed in Boxing Rec. This is described as a 17-round draw with Paddy Slavin, which is incorrect. Boxing Rec is wrong. This is a 17-round draw with Bill Slavin, Frank Slavin's brother. Bill Slavin was much bigger fighter than Mccarthy, as Mccarthy is continuously having to give away huge disadvantages in height and weight to fight these much bigger fighters, such as Jim Jawbreaker Fogerty, who was quite a bit bigger than the middleweight Billy Mccarthy. Even at being a middleweight, he's only 5'6.5", which is not particularly tall for a middleweight. So next we have February 1888, a 4-round draw with Bob Fitzsimmons. This is the very fight where Bob Fitzsimmons first got a reputation. Mccarthy looked to avoid Bob Fitzsimmons in the later stages of the bout. So Fitzsimmons probably got the best of that match, but nonetheless, Mccarthy was the one that moves on, even though the newspaper is stating that Fitzsimmons may have got the best of the bout. This is part of a tournament, and Mccarthy is moving on in the tournament in February here, as you can. This is documented on Boxing Rec, and McCarthy just a few days later gets a win over Jack Malloy and recaptures the middleweight championship. So at that point, Mccarthy is the middleweight champion for the second time. He originally lost the title to one of the matches he had with jawbreaker Jim Fogerty. So April 1888, he has a series of draws with Australian Billy Smith. And Mccarthy fractures his hand in the second round of one of the matches. And miraculously, he goes on and manages to get himself a draw against one Aussie, Billy Smith, with a fractured hand for a considerable amount of the fight. So next he gets a loss to Mick Dooley. This is November 1888. Dooley was cornered in the second round. A right hand on the jaw floored him. He took the 10 seconds allowed and got up smiling and had the best of the remaining round. Dooley should have won the sixth round. He should have won, for he had manners his own way, but was forced to dwell because he was short on breath. The seventh, Mccarthy was at his mercy, but Dooley did not have enough power to hit him with a settler. The eighth round was tame as both fighters were dead tired. And the match is awarded to Mick Dooley as he gets the better of Mccarthy. Dooley was a better fighter than Mccarthy. There's no doubt about it. So next, April 89, the following year, this is the super match, the rematch with the jawbreaker, Jim Fogerty. The second round, Fogerty goes down and he is looking dazed. Round 4, Fogerty is already out of wind. Round 7, Fogerty goes down again. Round 8, Fogerty avoids conflict and runs about half a mile during the last round. This is a match in which Billy Mccarthy wins and beats John Fogerty on the super match rematch. So the first fight with Fogerty, Mccarthy had the fight completely dominated, and of course Fogerty landed an incredible shot, knocked Mccarthy down, actually fractured his jaw. That's one of the claims to fame as Fogerty has as the jawbreaker, is he broke many fellows' jaws, and Mccarthy was one of them in their first match. But Mccarthy gets revenge and wins the rematch. So immediately a boxer named Charles Dunn challenges him. May 1889, Dunn decides he's going to fight Mccarthy, and Mccarthy injures his hand in the third round and fights to a draw with the boxer Dunn. As this is the second time that Mccarthy injured his right hand, and he's forced to just try and meander through the fight with a fractured hand and pull himself a draw. So the summer of 1889, Mccarthy invades America. This is the following couple years after Peter Jackson goes to America. And much like Jackson, Billy Mccarthy enters San Francisco. So this is the summer of 1889. August 1889, Mccarthy, now known as Billy Mccarthy. In Australia, he was known as M or W Mcarty. They spelled it a little differently. That's why it's pretty hard to find some of his fights, because the spelling is off. and he spars with Joe Choyinski, August 1889. December 1889, he fights Danny Kelleher. This is, again, a match that's not on Boxing Rec. McCarthy injures his right hand in the 4th round and eventually knocks Kelleher out with a George LeBlanc pivot punch, as Billy McCarthy uses the pivot punch almost more frequently than any of the fighters, as he, at this point, everyone's trying to copy George LeBlanc with the pivot punch, as he became quite famous for knocking out Jack Dempsey. So everyone's attempting to follow in his footsteps, and Billy McCarthy uses a pivot punch quite frequently. So here we are, February 1890. The first match was Jack Dempsey. In the headlines, Jack Dempsey regains prestige as he defeats Billy McCarthy. 28-round TKO win. And of course, this is the match where Dempsey's absolutely annoyed to the extreme, as McCarthy is attempting to try and do the pivot punch on Dempsey multiple times, but Dempsey's more than ready for it, as he's no longer caught by surprise by it. This is also the match where McCarthy, they're fighting on grass, and McCarthy's got these huge spikes, and he chews up Dempsey's shins, actually to the point where bone is showing, and they need to wrap McCarthy's legs with bandages and wraps, and McCarthy has got some severe blood loss going down his legs as he's forced to fight 28 rounds, which is a very long fight with, bone showing on his shins. It's just incredible. We can't really tell if McCarthy did it on purpose. It's debatable. We don't know. But nonetheless, Dempsey got the best of McCarthy, but he gave him a heck of a match. 28 rounds is quite a long time. So that's February 1890. Just a few months later, May 1890, Bob Fitzsimmons #2. This is the match that actually propels Bob Fitzsimmons into a championship match with non-pro Jack Dempsey, because at this point, when Fitzsimmons gets the victory over McCarthy, who is a little bit more well-known than him because he obviously just fought Jack Dempsey, so he's a little bit bigger name than Fitzsimmons at this point, Fitzsimmons earns himself the title shot against Jack Dempsey. So these are the notes. May 1890, Bob Fitzsimmons, #2. The second round, McCarthy got a lump under his eye. The third round, Fitzsimmons' long reach proves too much, and McCarthy was knocked down near round's end. Rounds 4, 5, and 6 were all marked by fierce fighting, but Fitz's reach was a major advantage for him. In round 7, Billy McCarthy is badly punished around the face. Round 8, McCarthy desperately tries to land a telling blow, but was bleeding severely around the mouth. Round 9, McCarthy lands a big blow, but paid for it with fierce punishers. A left hand battered and dazed him twice. He was knocked down near round's end, and he was unable to continue the fight. So it's Bob Fitzsimmons with a TKO in round 9. And as I stated, this is what launched Bob Fitzsimmons into a real superstardom. This was the match that really got him some merit in the boxing community. So next we have Billy McCarthy, as he was known as a professor, just like Peter Jackson. And Billy McCarthy was second for Frank Slavin in the Joe McAuliffe fight. He was in his corner, as McCarthy was doing some teaching also. February 1891, Jim Hall, a former McCarthy pupil. One judge ruled for Hall, one judge ruled for McCarthy, while the referee used his prerogative and ruled in favor of McCarthy, as McCarthy gets a split decision win over Jim Hall. Next, we have April 1891. This is one of the fights of the year against Jim Burge. McCarthy is often referred to as Mac here, so when you just say Mac, it is McCarthy. Mac went in as man like a wolf after baked lamb. Rounds 4 and 5, twice Burge was floored, but he continued on. Round 20, Burge forced the pace, scoring well. Mac seemed very worried when he spun around on his toes and landed a LeBlanc pivot punch swing, and Burge fell senseless to the floor. It took 8 minutes to revive Jim Burge, for he was unconscious. And this is one of McCarthy's claims to fame as the first person to knock out Iron Bark Jim Burge, as he's the first person to accomplish that feat. So next, we have this absolute fearless killer machine, Billy McCarthy, giving a 17-pound difference. As May 1891, he fights the 177-pound Joe Goddard. This results in 6-round loss, retired between rounds. The fight was fast and furious. McCarthy showed great cleverness in avoiding punishment. Goddard swings his right and misses, and McCarthy, shouldering him, causes the big man to fall. The round closes with very much enthusiasm. That was round 1. Round 2, lots of clinching, McCarthy taking severe punishment. Round 3, Goddard rushed in on Mac and tried to pivot punch him, and Goddard only smiled. So Mac rushed in on Goddard and tried to pivot punch him. Goddard only smiled. Round 4, after some clinching, Mac got in a hard one on the ribs and raising Goddard's ire, who hit McCarthy about the face the remainder of the round. The 5th round, Goddard kept hitting Mac and had him bleeding about the face. Altogether, the little man had a sultry time and seemed glad when the round ended. That was the 5th round. The 6th and final round, Goddard led fiercely and McCarthy kept hugging for support. Some terrific fast exchanges took place. McCarthy was very weary. Goddard rushed in, hitting him all over, and sent him to the floor. McCarthy rose, only to throw in the sponge, as he wanted no more. The following month, McCarthy sails for America in the same month, May 1891. He is sailing for America. Okay, McCarthy is now in America, July 1891. He has his first big match. These are finish fights, which pay quite a bit more than some of the other fights. And McCarthy was one of the finish fight masters, as he fought many finish fights. So he's fighting Alex Greggons. Alex Greggons later becomes famous as he's the referee that gives Marvin Hart the decision over Jack Johnson. Mccarthy had the best throughout and twice nearly knocked out Greggons. McCarthy's arm became useless after round 20, and the referee wouldn't allow him to continue when he discovered it. So this is a loss on round 26 of a finish fight. But in fact, McCarthy has the best throughout the fight and twice knocks down and almost knocks out Alex Greggons. So next we have one of the all-time classics. We finally get a match with the two pivot punchers against one another. This is quite a few years later, 2 years after Greggons. May 1893, 33-year-old Billy McCarthy versus 36-year-old George LeBlanc. This is 1 hour and 16 minutes of the most spectacular fighting ever seen. From the 6th round to the 12th round, honors were about even as the men were in fine form. The San Fran man got home on McCarthy's eye, splitting it open and drawing first blood. Infighting and savage clinches followed. The men were growing weak from blood loss. 4 more rounds happened after the 12th. In the 16th, he sent LeBlanc to the floor with a terrific uppercut. The San Francisco man was unable to rise by time and was knocked out. Billy McCarthy win in round 16 KO over the great George LeBlanc. So this is very much proven that McCarthy is on the side of the Class C fighters as LeBlanc is on the bottom end of the Class C fighters. So at this point, McCarthy's career is starting to wind down a little bit here. These are his twilight years. September 1893, mysterious Billy Smith. So this is one of the cool matches where we actually get one of the American champions versus one of the Australians. They boxed 6 lively rounds, no blood, no knockdowns. Neither man appeared anxious to exert himself for the little money that was in sight. 6-round draw with mysterious Billy Smith. November 1893, Frank Craig knocks Billy McCarthy down, and he loses just about every round to Frank Craig. As I stated, McCarthy is starting to fade here. He's a 34-year-old boxer, and in the pioneer age, 34 is pretty darn ancient. So next we have October, the following year, about a almost calendar year after Frank Craig. This is 34-year-old Billy McCarthy versus 31-year-old Jack Nonpareil, Jack Dempsey, number 2. This match is pretty remarkable because Billy McCarthy has carbuncles, which is those welts, and he breaks out and has his wounds lanced before the fight as they're infected, and he has them lanced, and he still fought. So this is also Jack Dempsey's last match, even though he has a fake match with Tommy Burns when he's way, way sick. He's pretty darn sick right here when he's fighting Billy McCarthy. And both of them are in pretty rough shape, so it kind of evens itself out, and they both of them are at the end of their rope just about. So Dempsey had the best of the bout throughout, but it was too weak to knock out his opponent, and they split a purse of $2,000 that was divided. It's a pretty darn big purse because both of them were pretty big-name fighters. I just find it remarkable that McCarthy is able to fight the match with carbuncles and having a complete infection going on in his body, and he fights just so many 20-round draw with Dempsey under those conditions. I mean, this guy McCarthy is just a complete warrior. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's hard to tell even who was more sick during that match because Dempsey was very sick with tuberculosis at this point. So just an incredible effort by both men to give the final match of Dempsey's career there. So next we have the following year, June 1895, 35-year-old Billy McCarthy, way past his prime, versus 26-year-old Dan Creedon. Creedon led with his left, landing on the base of the windpipe, staggering McCarthy. A left-right left trip hammer style on the face forced McCarthy to the ropes. A left and right, and McCarthy was down. He gamely tried to rise, but was counted out. McCarthy never landed a blow, and cries of "fake" were heard throughout the arena. The opponents had to be removed from the ring by the police in a near-riot atmosphere. So, as you can see there, McCarthy's pretty faded. He just got steam-walked by Creedon and never even landed a punch on him. So that's obviously why the audience was doing cries of "fake" as they almost started a riot there. Next, we have a 36-year-old, very ancient Billy McCarthy. The following year again, December 1896, against the great Tommy Ryan. So McCarthy not only faces Fitzsimmons and everybody else, he also is facing Dempsey, and he's facing the middleweight champion after Dempsey and Tommy Ryan. And these are the notes from the fight, December 1896. The first round was decidedly in favor of Tommy Ryan. The second round proved a surprise as McCarthy sailed in and fought Ryan to a standstill. Twice, Tommy Ryan was floored with wicked uppercuts as he just managed to survive the round by hugging. So, pretty shockingly, as McCarthy is going out like a bulldog, a 36-year-old, 10 years older than Tommy Ryan, and he floors him twice in the second round. The third round, McCarthy landed another wicked uppercut, and then Ryan mixed things up with delight from the crowd. The fourth round was all Ryan, hitting McCarthy wherever he pleased. The sixth round, Ryan landed plenty of blows but lacked steam on the punches. The seventh round, after 2 minutes of fighting, the referees stopped as McCarthy was too weak to go on from blood loss. So, Tommy Ryan, 7th round TKO win over Billy McCarthy. Now, finally, we have here, so that was December 1896. 1897, we have one of the final statements here. It's such a shame to see Billy McCarthy getting battered around by men with whom would not stand no chance against him in his best of days, as Billy Mccarthy needs to find himself a new occupation as he's taking severe punishment, continuing to fight at this stage of his career well past his prime. And McCarthy does linger on for a little bit there, fighting periodically, trying to just make a little bit of money as a pugilist, with his best ring days far behind him. But overall, Billy Mccarthy was a very good fighter and one of the best fighters of the Iron Pot Academy. Better than the next fighter that we will do in the next video, which will be Aussie Billy Smith, is where we will start. So thanks for listening, and these are the beginning of the Volume 1 of the Illustrated Australian Fighters.